And we welcome you into the Wednesday night episode of West Virginia Mountaineers Live. This is the inaugural episode hosted by the Ryan and Rush Show. You may have heard of us, you may not have. If you haven't, please subscribe to our channel, the Ryan and Rush Show on YouTube. Just hit our 1,000 subscribers. So thank you all there to everyone out there supporting us. I am joined by the leader in name, Mr. Ryan McIntyre. Ryan, how are you doing tonight? You excited to be doing this?
Absolutely, Rush. And last week I came on with Joey Foster and appreciate the opportunity with Mark Rogers that we got going on over here at West Virginia Mountaineers Live, and just really looking forward to doing the show. You're probably wondering, some of you, actually bet a majority of you have seen us, whether it's our channel at the Ryan and Rush Show. So, but just for those of you that have not heard of us or seen us or any of our content, we are the Ryan and Rush Show. I am Ryan McIntyre. I grew up in Virginia. I went to West Virginia University, and I worked for Bob Huggins for almost a decade of my life on the West Virginia basketball staff. So, although I did not grow up in Morgantown and I did not grow up in the state of West Virginia, I consider myself a West Virginian. I love the state. I lived there for a decade of my life. I go back all the time. So Rush and I are out of Morgantown on the Ryan and Rush Show, and just looking forward to doing the show every single Wednesday night at 8:00. So this will be a consistent thing. So set your calendars, set your reminders, make sure you're subscribed to the Voice of College Football on the West Virginia channel, the main channel, the Big 12 channel, so that you get all the notifications and latest news. But that's a little bit about me, and I know I kind of talked about myself a little bit with Joey on Friday night, but Rush, tell everybody a little bit about yourself. Of course, this is your actual debut. I know it's the Ryan and Rush debut, but it's your individual debut as well.
And it's an honor. Yeah, thank you. Apologies on the absence on Friday night. Actually, the Ryan and Rush Show was sponsoring a fundraiser up in Wheeling for the National Wildlife Turkey Federation. So we love, and that's the point of the Ryan and Rush Show. And of course, what we want to do here is it may say Ryan and Rush, it may say West Virginia Mountaineers, like may have be under a bunch of titles, but if Ryan and I are involved, our goal is always to help the West Virginia community. And those around. Ryan and I grew up together, played travel baseball in Northern Virginia. But as Ryan said, we're proud converted West Virginians. I live here in Morgantown right now. My beautiful fiance works at the Children's Hospital. And another thing that we want to bring up, and something that we feel is very important to be known, is that we know that we can never take his place. Incredible content guy, incredible just person. Unfortunately, we never got to meet him ourselves, but we've watched his videos a million times. Golden Blue dude who was doing this before we are. We'll never replace him, but we're happy to do this in honor of him. And may his spirit continue to live on this show. Again, we love you all. Oh, thank you, Joey. Thank you so much for handing us the keys. We really appreciate it. And shout out Joey Foster, great guy. Reached out to us, and we were just honored by him even asking us to come on. But Ryan, enough with who we are and all that stuff. They can figure that all out later. This is week 1, and there is a football game being played Saturday, specifically Saturday night, 7:30 on NBC against 7th-ranked Penn State. We'll talk about that game specifically and kind of our outlook of the season here coming up. But before we get there, Ryan, how did we get to this point, right? A lot of off seasons, Neil Brown's press conferences, transfer portal, who's going to be the quarterback, what's going on here? How did we get to this point, Ryan?
Yeah. So you made a good point, Rush, is that we're picking up a new show here, starting over here on West Virginia Mountaineers Live, week 1. And we're not playing Duquesne week 1. We're going to Happy Valley. We're going to Beaver Stadium. And it's going to be a whiteout or a blue stripe in one section. So how did we get here? Preseason number 14, expectations, honestly, I think we can all agree are as low as we can remember it. And it kind of sums up. It's a big year for Neil Brown, who's 22-25 in his time in Morgantown. I think we can all agree it's been somewhat of a disappointment so far, but they have a shot to silence the doubters. And I think it's kind of been blown out of proportion about how bad this team is potentially. I think it's a little ridiculous, and we'll go position by position, the strengths and weaknesses of this team. And I think it's gone a little bit overboard. Yes, it was a tough year last year, 5-7, but this isn't a bad football team or a horrible football team, or some people or national talking heads throwing out 2-10 and 1-11. That's just ridiculous. I'll bet any amount of money they do not go 2-10, and you can hold me to that. But I think it's. I mean, we'll give out our official season records, but they're going to be in a lot of close games, especially with the way that they're going to play, and it's going to be a lot of who wins a turnover battle, and I think that the margin of error is not very big with this team, and I think that they're going to embrace that. And I don't know, Rush. What do you think? Has it gone way overboard with how bad this team is according to the national heads?
Oh, of course. And you look at even some games last year. I mean, I don't mean to keep bringing this one up to you, Ryan, because I know you had money on this and it messed up your whole parlay. But the TCU game last year, the Pitt game at first, the Kansas. I mean, how many of these games can we go down and something different happens, and next thing you know, we're 8-5, maybe even 9-3. So we definitely want to make that clear right here. Sometimes the ball doesn't go in your way, and sometimes we see the following season that even out there. Something where I think that evens out and gets this team right is we've seen Neil Brown continue to talk about foundational football, doing the small things right. We won't beat ourselves, and that even applies to Neil Brown himself, right? How many times have we seen Neil Brown I've screamed at him from the stands being like, how do you come out of a commercial break and call a timeout? Like, how do you do that? And I think one benefit is I know his play calling is a little questionable, or should he be the play caller? And I get the question behind it. But I think something we saw last year that led to a lot of a timeout being called after a commercial break, or people not being lined up right, or delay of game, or just stupid stuff to shoot yourself in the foot, was because I think him and Graham Harrell and Neil Brown just kind of had this internal civil war going on where it's like, who's rightfully the play caller? So I think the one benefit where I'm sure there'll be plays we question with Neil Brown. I can only watch so many wide receiver screens again this year before it's like, just run the ball. But at least I think there'll be better communication. Neil Brown's talked about it with the fundamentals, tackling, his last press conference is, we got to tackle on one-on-one space. We got to win the trenches. We got to win the one-on-one battles, right? The whole Belichick, do your job. If each individual person does their job, wins the one-on-one things, the Mountaineers will have a very successful season. And I really like the concept of getting back to basics, taking one game at a time. And I know this team's definitely flying under the radar this year, but I like this team, Ryan. I think there's a lot of things. Yeah, there's a lot of questionable things and a lot of things we'll figure out. But it sounds like Neil Brown's going to rotate through every player this coming weekend against Penn State. And I'm kind of excited to see, Garrett Green, the dual threat quarterback. I wouldn't be surprised if they throw Nico in there for some surprise stuff. Hey, when you're going against Penn State, you have nothing to lose. Hell, put Garrett Green and Nico out there. Line up Nico at wide receiver. Do some razzle dazzle and figure it out. Why not? So I do like how there's just been this emphasis on getting back to basics, cleaning up what needs to be cleaned up. And yes, the margin of error is small for this team, but if we clean up the stuff that we can prevent and make other teams beat us, I think the sky's the limit, Ryan.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned it. The margin of error is small, but they're going to play a brand of football that should embrace that mindset. We've seen so many stats being floated around, whether it's they're 18-4 under Neil Brown when they rush for over 100 yards. If they don't run for over 100 yards in every single game this year, then they didn't run the ball enough, because there should be at least 30-plus carries to go around with that talented backfield of Donaldson, Anderson, Johnson, and then Jaheim White. I mean, the freshman that's teased a little bit, they said they're going to play him. They said the same thing about C.J. Donaldson last year, and we saw what happened when he came on the national stage in that opener at Pitt. So looking forward to seeing how they use him. Why you could be optimistic about this team. We mentioned it with the small margin of error where they're going to play a physical brand of football. The offensive line, Milam, Rymack, or Frazier, Nestor, all 5 starters back. I know Yates is probably going to start at the right guard position. I really it's a really good unit. And PFF, for example, released their all Big 12 teams. West Virginia had 3 out of the 5 starting offensive linemen. A team that has 3 out of the 5 starting offensive linemen from a talent standpoint does not finish 14th out of 14th, especially when you have newcomers at BYU, UCF, Houston, Cincinnati. That doesn't happen. So, like you said, it's not a sexy team because we're talking about the offensive line. Everybody wants to talk about the quarterback, Garrett Green, Nico. But in the end, it comes down to if you can't block those guys and keep those guys upright, you're going to have a long season. So that's why I like the chances, why I'm positive on this outlook of this team, and why this team could be good. Rush, if you had to pinpoint, I don't know, an area of concern headed into the season, because there's plenty, like you said, we're highlighting the offensive line is definitely the strong suit. I think you could go any analyst in the country and everybody say offensive line, they got to run the ball. What's an area for you where you're saying, man, if we got to patch that and get better and better so that we're good at the second half of the year and we can win some conference games down the road?
Yeah, I think it's the front 7 on defense. You know, we do have some guys there, but it's when Neil Brown's in his press conference talking about, oh, we're going to be rotating guys, you know, left and right. What to read between the lines and what he's saying there is we're looking for dogs out there that want to play and can't give us a reason to take you off the field. I mean, we're this year, you know, a lot of good guys coming in. You know, we got Bartlett, hoping that he has a big breakout season this year. I'm actually looking, the secondary's not been talked about a lot. And I know some people have said that's an area of concern. I'm actually think this is going to be a solid secondary this year, especially with Beanie Bishop. A little bit favorable, great last name there. So I got to go get now that NIL's a thing, I got to go get my Beanie Bishop jersey. But it's especially when you start out against number 7 Penn State. And we had someone on the Ryan and Rush show earlier, a couple hours ago today, kind of every Wednesday on the Ryan and Rush show, we're going to bring on someone from the opposing team we're calling it Behind Enemy Lines. And I mean, not going to lie, guys, Penn State, they're going to have some NFL caliber guys. They have a great offensive line. Their defensive line's pretty solid, but can our defensive line give them trouble, give them fits? Can our linebackers disguise, our edge rushers get in there? There is something about playing like you have nothing to lose, where you see who steps up and really plays that way. And I think that can work in his advantage for West Virginia, especially week 1, right? Week 1 in college football, where have all these most incredible upsets have happened? Week 1, right? Appalachian State, Michigan, right? That's when have we seen the FCS opponents beat the FBS opponents? Week 1, when they usually play, right? You've had all offseason to prepare for this. You're figuring things out. And hey, as good as a team might be on paper, doesn't mean they have the communication right. Doesn't mean they have the game situations right. Doesn't mean they have, you know, there's still a lot to figure out. And hey, just from a mindset standpoint, go in there, Ryan, like you have nothing to lose. And I think great things can happen when that happens.
And shout out to the chat, everybody commenting, trying to display each one of your comments. I think Kenny makes a great point. West Virginians love being the underdog. I actually watched the Georgia Sugar Bowl the other day, the Oklahoma Fiesta Bowl, and we got a buddy that does our notes over there at the Ryan and Rush show, and the Clemson game. And I said, man, we had some talented dudes back in the day. And how creative Rich Rod was with all those running backs. I'm not saying we got Steve Slade and Noel Devine. I'm not saying, or Owen Schmidt or Pat White. But in terms of the different aspects of how we should be utilizing these running backs, it should be somewhat along the lines of what a Rich Rod spread, read option, run pass option, stuff like that. That's how I think you keep these defenses off balance. And then you open up the field and you get a single coverage for a guy like Devin Carter. You mentioned it. It's going to be loud at Penn State. So they got to lean on the vets that have been in environments like this. The offensive line, number 1. We keep saying it over and over. Pound. That's going to be the common thing. You guys are going to be tired of me saying that this offensive line is really good, because they are really good. And that's got to be the horses that take us home to victory. But Devin Carter, NC State, he's played in big-time games in the ACC, whether it's at Clemson, at Florida State. Another guy, Beanie Bishop, you already kind of teased him. He played at Minnesota. He's played in big games in the Big Ten.
He's played in this game. Yeah.
Yeah, he's played at Michigan. He's played at Ohio State. So these guys, it's the guys that have been in this atmosphere. Yes, I think that the babies, as I like to call it, Jaheim White, Rodney Gallagher, those guys are going to be really good down the road, but you got to take some pressure off them, and the veterans really got to lead on Saturday night and take that crowd out of it early on, in my opinion.
We saw something too, 2 years ago, Ryan, when Garrett Green went into Oklahoma and basically won that game for the Mountaineers. A couple talking about shooting ourselves in the foot. But we've seen Garrett Green come up and do great things. Now the question is, can he sustain that? With obviously injuries are always a concern, especially with a dual threat quarterback and a little bit of his history. Can he keep that going for a season instead of one game? But I'll tell you what, when you have the offensive line that we have, when you have a dual threat quarterback, when you have a ground and pound game, when you actually have, some speed and some, you bring up Devin Carter, some guys that, I'm not saying it's the best wide receiver room, but I'm saying it's a wide receiver room that you're going to have the ability to get guys open, especially if, the box is being stacked and they're not sure if Garrett Green's going to take off or not. Or if you here's a key is run a lot of play action. I'd be running almost play action almost every play, and keep guys guessing, but guys will get open. So then it, comes up to the receiver, whether they can, haul it in or not. So, we play simple, play smart, I don't want to say play fast. I mean, play fast in the sense of, hey, keep them on their heels type of thing, because something else, Ryan, that we've talked about on our show that can help us out is the fact that the clock keeps going on first down now. Yeah. So sometimes, especially if there's concerns on that defense, our best defense might be our offense. If we're able to just keep running and grinding the ball, got a new clock, keep going, keep running that down to about 5 seconds. And so there are a lot of factors here. I mean, it's definitely a David versus Goliath matchup, but there's a lot of factors here that David, has the stone. Now, can he just sling it in the right area? So I'm looking forward to this game, Ryan. It's definitely gonna be a lot closer than what the national guys are saying and the critics are saying.
Yeah, and to piggyback off what you said in terms of the clock running, for those that watch the Week 0 games, I know this isn't a gambling show. We're picking out all the games. Majority of these games went under the point totals, and a lot of games were played in the teens because the game was cut in about 10 minutes from what it usually is, because they didn't stop the clock every first down. So Mike Gundy was on record this week saying the teams that run the ball and run the ball really effective are going to be a lot better than what everybody's thinking. And Neil Brown talked about that at his presser on Monday, I think it was, or maybe it was yesterday. All the days go together. I'm just ready for Saturday. But I mean, and for Gundy to say that, I think Mike Gundy's the best coach in the Big 12, in my opinion. He's got the most wins. He's got the most sustained success. It tells me that they're really going to run the ball in Stillwater, which means I like where we're at, where we're really going to run the ball in Morgantown. So that's just something that I think benefits us in terms of not only this game, but when we get to Big 12 play, and maybe Texas Tech and TCU's and Oklahoma, and those teams have more talent, I guess, on paper. But when you shorten the game from a 60-minute game traditionally with all the clock stoppage into a 45, 50-minute game, I think you're taking away a 1-2 possessions from the favorite. And we see it. The more possessions, usually the cream rises to the top. I think you can pull an upset, or more upsets will be pulled more than ever in college football this year with the new rules, because it's kind of like March Madness. That's how all those 16, 15, and 14 seeds win. They shorten the game and they find a way to keep it close, and the favorite tightens up, and then the little guy, David, like you said, finds a way to get it done at the end. So, yeah, I definitely like that point, and I think we can use that to our advantage this year, Rush.
Well, and also, too, is Gundy, too, was specifically as well talking about the fourth quarter. It's those who can run, but especially in the fourth quarter, when you guys have guys huffing and puffing, especially the advantage, at least in the Big 12, we're going to like a BYU where they have the altitude on their side, too. So that'll be. I'm glad we don't have to go to Provo this year. I'm glad they're coming here. Actually, quick side note: BYU's definitely initiated into the Big 12 by being like, "Oh, you got to go to West Virginia for football and basketball." So join your initiation, BYU. We've gone through it ourselves and the other 3 teams. But speaking of, I mean, that's what we saw Kansas State do last year and what they do and how they won the Big 12 and why they're potential favorites again this year. That's whole Kansas State's motto is we're going to win in the trenches and we're going to ground and pound you. And then our quarterback, he'll make the throws that he needs to make. He's not going to go for a home run every time, but he'll complete the throws we need, spread the ball out. You can do a lot with that, spreading the ball out and just ground and pound, Ryan.
Yeah, and I like Kenny's point here. It's a tough game, tough schedule, but what a better way if you can run the ball in Penn State's going to be by far the best roster we've played all year. They're like, this is like playing Texas and Oklahoma from a couple years ago when they were in the top 10 every year. And we saw it, I think, in 2014 when we led off with Alabama. Another year coming off a disappointing year. I think we were 4-8 in 2013. Everybody said this team's going to be no good. Clint Trickett, he sucks. This defense sucks. Kevin White, who's that? And that really, I thought playing Alabama off the bat to start on a national TV game just like this, and we played really well. We were tied at halftime, and we ended up losing. I mean, they ended up winning the national championship. So I'm not saying Penn State's Alabama, but in terms of trying to win in Happy Valley, it's like playing Alabama. It's going to be a tall task. I mean, the spread is the spread for a reason. But I think playing a game like this, you go in there, you compete your tails off, and I think it sets the tone for what could be a promising season that a lot of people don't see coming. And who is it? Peninsula P in the chat. I'm not going to say the first part, but yes, we are looking forward to the backyard brawl. So glad to have you as well, even though you go to that school up north. Go ahead, Rush.
We'll forgive you for that. We appreciate the support. But and I know some people may consider this loser talk, but even just keeping that game close, keeping it one possession, within 10 points, showing that we can compete with Penn State the whole game, keeping them on their heels, getting like that moral victory, kind of what you're alluding to with that Alabama to start the 2014 season, tune things up against Duquesne, and then beat Peninsula, week 3 and the Pitt Panthers and get tuned up and then take off from there for Big 12 play. Yeah. I mean, this game can really set the tone for the rest of the season. So going back to what we were saying, Ryan, is just go out there like you have nothing to lose, because you really don't. West Virginia has nothing to lose. There's no expectations for them in this game. This is not a game where Neil Brown's job's on the line. Now, don't get me wrong, don't get beat 40-0, but just go out there and just have fun. And usually the team that has the most fun, I mean, we see it every year. It doesn't matter what sport it is, especially come playoff time or big game time. Give me any sport. Show me the team that looks like they're having the most fun out there. Those are your winner. They're going to win. So why not?
And I think that's a perfect transition into our next segment here. Is we've talked about the roster, how we got here, 14th in the league. We both agree, disrespectful, and we're going to prove, or these Mountaineers are going to prove everybody wrong, and show up on Saturday. Let's talk schedule, man, because I will say, like everybody's saying, we got to win 9 games. I'm like, I hear you. I love the optimism. It's going to be really hard because I think we're one of like 4 or 5 teams that has 11 Power 5s on the schedule. This isn't the SEC where you get Austin P and UT Martin in week 10 or 11. Yes, I know you're top heavy in the SEC, but you still do get the FCS cupcakes before the Iron Bowl or before you play LSU or Ole Miss or whatever. But let's talk schedule, man. So yeah. We start off with the Pennsylvania battle with all 3 Pennsylvania teams.
Yeah, the war against Pennsylvania, followed by the war against Texas. 3 Pennsylvania, 3 Texas schools.
Yeah, and that's the first half, just like that.
Yeah. So we definitely kind of said everything that needs to be said about the Penn State. I'm sure we'll come back to it at the end of the episode. Obviously, we get Duquesne for the home opener in Morgantown. Obviously, a game that, well, it better be a win. We'll just leave it like that. But an opportunity to tune up, get more players out there, build depth, get the communication right. Because week 3, would you agree?
Is the season.
It is the season. And I'll tell you this, and then especially you have Texas Tech right after that. So, I mean, those two Ryan, if you get to Pitt, and I don't even want to think like this, but I think that's Neil Brown's career too.
And I hate putting ultimatums out there, but they cannot lose that game. They should not lose that game. They went to Pitt last year. They should have won the game. Yeah, and we're not going to lose that game. Well, we should have won the game at Pitt last year, but like Kenny says in the chat, I hope we play smart, no stupid penalties. If we do that, we'll have a good season. We had dumb penalties. We had a drop, and we should have went for it on 4th and inches to put the game away behind what we're saying is the strength of the team, that offensive line. If it happens again this year, I guarantee he'll go for it. So, I think that's the season, because I think if you beat Pitt, that gives you a sort of momentum that can really build on a season. I'm trying to remember what that win was in 2014. I think I keep talking about that
Maryland?
Season. It was Maryland and at Texas Tech. We won on 2 walk-off field goals at both places, both road games. Great wins. Lambert hit a 55-yarder at Texas Tech or something. But that really got the momentum going for the season, because we played Oklahoma and Alabama in the first 4 weeks. Oklahoma was like number 3 and Bama was number 1. So we were 2-2, but we had lost to 2 of the top 4 teams. But I think, man, you beat Pitt. That really gives you some momentum going into the Big 12. And I think you got to get that Texas Tech game, man. We've been getting our what kicked by them under the Neil Brown era. It's time to punch back, man. They're getting a lot of hype. They're going to have a lot of travel and some emotional games in the month of September. They got to go to Wyoming this weekend. I don't know who scheduled that. That's a bad schedule, because you got to play Oregon the next week. So I think, man, I think if they can find a way to get all 3 home games after the Penn State game, we're really sitting in the driver's seat.
Well, if you want to if you want to oversimplify it, win your home games. I mean,
6 of them.
Yeah. And then you at least know you're going to a bowl game. So, I mean, but obviously the harder said than done, especially when you have a school like Texas Tech. But yeah, hey, appreciate it. Yeah. Don't forget to hit that like button, and also don't forget to subscribe to this channel. And of course, the Ryan and Rush Show as well. We appreciate all the support, but no, I'm with you, Ryan. I don't know how Texas Tech has to go to Wyoming. They also have to go to Provo this year too. So they're probably going to be sucking some wind, and
it's a long trip to Morgantown for them.
I know
after going to Wyoming and playing Oregon, man, they got to find a way to get that one. I know that we've struggled. We got to find a way to get both. Pitt and Texas Tech game. These are the demons that have really haunted the Neil Brown era. Those 2 kind of games he has not won. He needs to win both of them this year.
And I'll say this too, right after Texas Tech, you're at TCU. Historically, that we've done well at TCU. Even Neil Brown's won at Fort Worth, and we all know the game last year, where that was kind of a game Neil Brown couldn't get, out of his own way. We're aware it happens, but even last year we played him well. We almost had him on upset alert and prevented him from going to the national championship. And then, of course, I think it's the bye week after that, Ryan, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, because then we got some
Dana Bowl.
we got the Bolgerson, the Dana Bolgerson. And he's going to be ready for that one. He marked his calendar for that one, and who knows? That might be the battle of what'd be funny about all of this. I mean, funny, hot, I'm not laughing too hard, but is if Dana, that's the game where the coach, whoever loses that game, leaves town.
Potentially. You know what? I'll give a hot take here. I love hot takes.
Never gets us in trouble, ever.
Never. Everybody is saying the hot take is it's good, or not. I don't even think it's a hot take. They're like, oh, they're going to be 1-4. They're going to beat Duquesne, lose all those other games. They're going to be 4-1 leaving Fort Worth.
Yeah.
I think I think it's going to be the reverse. I think this team's going to sneak up on it, and everybody's going to be like, man, West Virginia's a lot better than what we projected. I'm predicting they're 4-1 headed into the bye week.
I like it. At least 3-2. But yeah,
yes.
I mean,
3-2, you're in a good position too.
We've already laid it out, right? We've already talked about Penn State, Duquesne. We're beating Pitt this year. There's no failure's not an option, right? Texas Tech is going to be winded by week 4, and they have to come to Morgantown. We've done well at Fort Worth. Yeah, and then we got to rest up a bit, get ready for Dana. And then, that game, I will say that Thursday night game where West Virginia will have all the opportunities to win that game. that game's going to be a grinder. That's actually the perfect Thursday night game. I'm really glad that scheduled the way it did. But then,
I
hey,
guarantee.
yeah.
I said to go right with you. That I guarantee that will not be a blowout. The Dana game, because Dana's going to keep all his trick plays for that's going to be Dana's Super Bowl. He wants to stick it to West Virginia. Didn't end pretty, so
West Virginia wants to stick it to him.
Yeah, that thing's going to be an ugly game, and that thing's going to come right down the wire. Hopefully, we're on the right side of it.
Yep. But hey, it goes back to our whole what we're saying is do the right things, don't trip over your own feet, and make another team beat you. If another team comes out and legitimately beats us and it was just, hey, they were just a better team. I mean, yeah, it sucks that we lost, but no one's like, we're not crying about it. Like there was a lot to cry about last season, as we talked about. I mean, we brought up 3 or 4 games where it's like, hey, we do this one thing a little differently. And, we're talking actually a decent bowl game and never mind a 5-7 season. But then after that Houston game, right? Because that's played Thursday. You got a nice little, 8, 9, 10-day break. And then you got Oklahoma State in Morgantown. I mean, we're big fans of Gundy. He's done a great job at Oklahoma State. We really respect him. We finally got a win in Stillwater at the end of last year. Mm-hmm. I mean, hey, there's a lot of questions with this Oklahoma State team as well. They come to Morgantown. Yeah, they've usually had our number. But hey, that's, especially if we're rolling in, that's a winnable game at UCF. Who knows what they'll be by that time in the season. One of the newer schools coming in, then BYU comes here. Then you start playing the new teams, Ryan. And if you're like we're saying, like 4-1, 5-1, 4-2 by the end of Houston, and then you kind of have these, you still got Cincinnati left on the schedule, BYU, UCF, opportunities to kind of pick off some of these other teams. I mean, it's at least a 7 to 8 win team.
We've talked about every scenario so far in this offseason. One thing I don't think one angle we have not talked about, Rush, is it beneficial, and I think it is, to get more of the newcomers on the back end of the schedule rather than the front end, because I think that their depth from a recruiting aspect is not as good in the trenches. And for a team that's going to pride itself on running the football, I think they could wear down a UCF, a BYU, a Cincinnati on the back end of the season rather than playing them. And if you were playing UCF on the last Saturday in September and you had to go down and it was 90 degrees, they could pick you off because they're probably more healthy and they're not into their second string of bodies because the injuries are going to mount up. Well, we know that with football. Football's a violent game. So I think getting the newcomers, especially the three of them on the back end of the schedule, is definitely beneficial, especially Cincinnati at the end.
So I think there's a couple ways to look at this. I think in the age of college sports that we're in now is that if there's any team, especially team with high expectations, I know this doesn't necessarily apply to West Virginia this year, but is you kind of don't perform. Like if you have your tougher opponents at first and say it's just not working out, right?
Yeah.
You could all of a sudden have guys being like, I'm not wasting a year of eligibility, whatever reason, just I'm out.
Portal.
I'm in the portal. I'm out. So by having kind of those newer teams figuring things out on the front end, I think you do have a more opportunity to kind of settle into the season and kind of save up. But then this is what you're saying is this is also the game of football where it's a war of attrition. And yeah, maybe it's better to go at these harder teams when you're healthier. There's still more to figure out. Some teams, even the better ones, don't really have their identity yet. Yeah, maybe they're leaning towards, or they're pretty sure what their identity is, but they're still looking for it. And I think it kind of goes back to what we're saying with week one upsets is you can, to your point, pick them off, have a better chance of picking them off to start the season. So going back to at least the West Virginia point of view is let's put Penn State to the side for a second because they're 7th ranked. It's the best team we're going to play all year. They're a great squad. There's no expectations for this game, right? Duquesne, their other side of the spectrum, better win that, as we said. Pitt, winnable game. We've brought up what we've talked about with Texas Tech. We brought up our history with TCU. It's going to be all out with Houston. So I think for the Mountaineers in this particular situation, you're right, Ryan, is you get through those games the way you need to, 4-2, maybe with Oklahoma State, and basically if you can get up to UCF, and what's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 games, and you're getting to UCF, and we'll say conservatively at least have 4 wins. Ideally 5, and 5 is possible, but we'll say, and then you have UCF, BYU, you still have Cincinnati. Who knows? I mean, end of the season too, we play Oklahoma and Baylor. I mean, those teams, while they do have more expectations than we do, how many times have we seen it in the past where those teams have high expectations? That exact scenario happens where they kind of falter, and by the end of the season, they're either on injured reserve, they're transferred out, or no one's really playing for anything. I mean, who knows what Venables is going to do at Oklahoma? I mean, you and me both agree that he's probably more of a defensive coordinator than he is a head coach. Yeah. And I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but if there's betting odds out there, I bet that he does not survive past this year at Oklahoma. I really don't think so. So who knows what those teams are going to be by then? And maybe it's like we saw last year with Oklahoma State and Oklahoma's. They're kind of depleted by then. So I do think it's kind of that sandwich. You want to play some good teams in the start, that middle, kind of the softer, and then the supposedly good teams at the end of the season. I mean, there's a chance at least 1 or 2 of them might be a lot softer than we originally think. It's a long season. So the way the schedule does kind of up and down, I do think it favors West Virginia if we play the fundamental football that they need to play.
I do wish we had 5 home games instead of 4, but it falls on this year. But yeah, I think almost beat Oklahoma 2 years ago in Norman. You mentioned it. Who knows what Oklahoma is going to look like at that point? We saw it last year. They don't have the depth in their program that they've had, and they're not as good at the quarterback position. They don't have a Heisman Trophy winner. Dillon Gabriel's good, but he's not Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, Caleb Williams,
Jalen Hurts.
Jalen Hurts. I mean, they've had an unbelievable run at the quarterback position and the coaching position. I don't know if Venables is the guy, and we almost beat Lincoln Riley and Spencer Rattler and Caleb Williams. I know they kind of split time that game. Almost beat him in Norman in prime time 2 years ago. And with the way that we play, beat him last year in Morgantown. With the way that we play football, we should be able to run right at him. And that's what's given them so many fits, especially you think about K-State. K-State always beats them because they just run the ball right down their throat and they just wear them down. So, yeah, I think the Oklahoma game's for the having. The at Baylor game to end the year is so random. I'm not.
It is weird.
They need to make that Cincinnati. I mean, it should be Pitt. It should be West Virginia Pitt on Black Friday every single year, but that's beside the point.
We'll just wait till the Big 12 poaches the ACC. We're ready for that. So that'll eventually happen again. We'll get there.
Yeah, hopefully. So, Rush, so let's get right into it. We'll put ourselves on the spot. Floor of this team and ceiling of this team in 2023 for the Mountaineers.
Mm-hmm. I think the floor is 4-8. I think the ceiling is 8-4. Yeah. I tend to be someone that is, you take the floor and the ceiling, you do the difference, and that's most likely where you'll end up. I'm thinking this is going to be a 6-6 year, but with wins against Pitt, which is, in a way that counts for 2 wins, right? Especially more. But everything we're talking about, Ryan, like, I'm more than happy to be wrong. And we go 8-4 because the way we laid it out, and if things fall into place, like, we believe that they can and that it is possible. 8-4 is not out of the question. I mean, we did, when they released the schedule right back in February, give or take, we mapped out the road to 8 wins there, and it still applies today. And so it is possible. The margin of error is almost doesn't exist. And if you're going to make a bunch of errors, do it just in one game that you're probably going to lose anyway. Get it all out of your system type of deal. But I'm going kind of conservative with the 6-6. I do think the Mountaineers get back to a bowl game this year, which will be great. I don't know where that puts Neil Brown. That's a conversation for another time. 1 week at a time. Yeah. But I think that 4-8 to 8-4 is the floor to ceiling. Not 2-10. I know that.
Yeah, I agree with you on the floor to ceiling, 4-8, 8-4. It's going to be a margin somewhere in there, just like last year. I thought we were a little bit unlucky, whether it was the pick game, dropping the ball, Kansas losing the way we did. I think 7-5. I think it evens out from last year,
I like it.
and we find a
That's a good
way.
way
It's
to
a
look at it.
successful year, and I think we go 7-5 because we protect home field at in Morgantown. And we talked about this. We were joined by, a lot of you guys know Coos Corner. He was on our show in the Ryan Rush Show. We had a really good discussion, in my
Mhm.
opinion. On why we have not won as much at home. I know the talent has not been there, but we should be winning at home. We should not lose more than one home game every single year, in our opinion. And it honestly really ticks me off that we've lost 3-4 home
Yeah.
games over multiple years under Neil Brown. That would probably be my biggest thing that pisses me off during the Neil Brown era. That we have not protected home field the way that we should. When you got the whole state rallying around you. You got people that save up all their money for the year so that they can go drive. And you guys seeing how expensive tickets are, how expensive gas is, how expensive a cold beer is, a hot dog. These guys have got to play not only for themselves, for their families, but for the whole state, all
Mhm.
1.8 people in the state of West Virginia. So that would be my thing. And I think this team, the underdog mentality, they're going to protect home field this year and pick off some teams in Morgantown. For example, a Pitt and Texas Tech would be a great start, a great
Oh,
homestand
yeah.
in September. So go ahead, Rush.
Well, I think you said it all right there, Ryan. Is we as West Virginia fans and as West Virginians, we deserve players playing their hearts out, coaches
Yeah.
coaching their hearts out for us, because that's what we do. All like we work our butts off all week long and look forward to these games. Look forward to Penn State. Look how many people are looking forward to us playing Penn State. Yeah, we've already talked about it. On paper, they're 7th ranked. It's going to be tough, but we're looking forward to that because we work so hard. We love this state so much. We love the culture. We love this school. So this is definitely that year for it's time for this football team to give us hope and give us something back. So like we said, it's absolutely possible. We're looking forward to it. I'm so glad football's here, Ryan.
No
It
doubt.
seems like I get to Memorial Day every year and I'm like, you know what? I'm ready for some football. So,
No doubt.
so we made it to Labor Day, right? But I think there's a lot of optimism. There's a lot of hope for West Virginia. There is something in the air. And it's like you said, Ryan, when we're the underdogs, good. I want us to be the underdogs. Don't forget about us. I dare you. I dare you.
Yep.
Put us as the underdogs. But going back to your point, when we're the underdogs, and historically, not lately, but historically, we play in Morgantown, no one can beat us, right? This is Morgantown's our place. And we need to keep that stadium popping all year long. So I have high hopes for this team. And I know you do as well, Ryan. And I think they can deliver,
Yeah,
but one
and
game at a
we're
time.
just tired of the negative. Everything's been negative about West Virginia this offseason, whether football, basketball. It's time for this fan base to get something positive, and these guys need to embrace the culture, embrace, hey, we're going to work today. We're going to go. If we're going to get beat, we're going to get beat by a better team. We're not going to get beat because we're not prepared.
Yep.
We called back-to-back timeouts. We got 150 yards of penalty and all that crap that we've seen the last couple of years. So that's all I asked from this team, and I know you're in agreement with me headed into this year. Let's go back to Penn State before
Okay.
we get out of here.
Let's do it.
And anybody's got a question, let us know in the
Yeah,
chat.
put questions in the
tweet it.
chat. Put West Virginia's record in the chat. What are we wrong about? What are we right about? Light it up. We'll feature you, and we'll talk it over. But
still getting used to this chat on the side, so we'll get
it's
better
great.
as we go. Yeah, we appreciate you guys tuning in on a Wednesday, and yeah, reminder, every Wednesday night at 8:00 we'll be going live. So make sure you set your calendars. And of course, there's other West Virginia shows on this platform. Go check out the Wolfman's Call. We had Dale Wolfley on our show as well. Former Mountaineer on the offensive line Monday through Thursday from 4 to 6 p.m. Reminder, after the game, West Virginia post-game live. That'll be after the Penn State game. And if you're a Penn State fan, I saw a couple Penn State fans in the chat. Get over there to Penn State post-game live if you want to hear that side of things. I don't know if I'll be tuning into that channel. I like staying local to my West Virginia channel, but hey, they do a great job over there. Good fan base. So glad the rivalry's back, and we both can agree on one thing: we don't like that one school in the city in Pennsylvania that the Steelers play at. So, yeah. So Rush, let's go back to Penn State, and we'll tease the prediction down the road. West Virginia shocks the world Saturday night, 7:30 NBC. First time West Virginia's been on NBC in forever. I think it's since they played like Notre Dame is what they said.
Oh,
I don't remember in my lifetime them being on NBC, but I've only been born since '93 like you. So.
Great year.
So
great year for us and West Virginia football. It was meant to be, Ryan. 93.
No doubt. And we interviewed Don Nealon, so go check out that.
We have Don Nealon on our show. Jeff Hostetler as well. Check out our show.
Yeah,
some great interviews there.
But
got another one in the works right now.
Oh yeah, that everybody will love. 7:30 Saturday night, NBC. The whole world's going to be watching. It's the primetime game. West Virginia shocks the world. They do what?
Well, we'll start out with everything Neil Brown said is they win the individual battles. They win the war in the trenches on both sides. They tackle one-on-one field. They don't beat themselves. But I think specifically is they slow that game down, Ryan. Every play takes another 30, 40 seconds off the game clock, and you just hand the ball off left, hand the ball off right, play action, a 5-yard out, like just over and over again. And you just, that's what it's about, is slow it down, get the crowd out of it. I would definitely start with, and I feel like Neil Brown's going to do this with, if you got some trick plays up your sleeve, if you know, we talked about it, if you want to put Nico and Garrett Green out there on the same field together, hey, get them out early, do something that's unexpected and silence that crowd right from the start, get it, jump up 7-0, 10-0. And show that we're here and we're here to play. So definitely slow the game down. And then, you know, another thing, and this isn't necessarily a key, but this is kind of more from the individual player side, is we talked about it earlier on the show. Neil Brown's going to put every player out there. Well, not every player, but you know what I'm saying. Which guys want to play, which guys want to be the starters, which guys want to be, you know, the next Stills or David Long, or which guys just want to just throw their bodies at the ball and at other players and go out there and win. So that, I guess that would be more of a question I have, which players are going to emerge from that. But the formula is there to win, Ryan. It is. What do you think?
The formula is, at least at a minimal, keep this thing manageable and have a shot to win in the fourth quarter. It's I let the big dogs eat. I'll keep it simple. Ride that offensive line until their tongues are dropping out of their mouths and they can't go anymore. Run the ball. An offensive line wants nothing more than to shut the home crowd up by running the ball right down their throat. And if you run the ball effectively on first down, it makes it third and manageable, third and short. Keep the chains moving, keep the crowd out of it. You got to probably double up Penn State in time of possession and start fast, man. I don't want to fall down 10-0, 14-0, 14-3 or whatever with Garrett Green. I guess we didn't officially announce that Garrett Green's going to start, but he's going to start on Saturday. So we're a team that needs to play from ahead with the way we're going to run the ball. So it would be nice if we could punch Penn State, like you said, 7-0, 10-0, and you got to win the turnover battle. If you're going to pull a monumental upset of being a 3-touchdown underdog, you can't lose the turnover battle. You probably got to win the turnover battle by 2. And they have a young quarterback, Drew Allar. This is his first start. I know he showed flashes last year. He came in the Purdue game. But if you put a little bit of pressure on him, everybody's comparing him to Ohio State, Michigan. We've seen this with Texas in our league in the Big 12. You punch him in the mouth a little bit, knock them off their horse a little bit, get it close, keep it close in the second half. Anything can happen, man. Mm-hmm. These are 18 to 22-year-olds. The game is not played on paper, and you can give yourself a shot to win it and steal what would be one of the best wins that I can remember in recent history. So that would be my kind of formula. Yeah.
Yeah. You would
while for sure.
You would definitely get a rejuvenated fan base. I like what BJ said here in the chat. Hope we throw to our 6-7 tight end. Yeah, get Cole Taylor involved. Absolutely. Something we haven't seen basically since Trayvon Wesco's been here.
Yep.
We haven't been much of a tight end team. Our Graw, the problem is Penn State can easily enter back. Yeah, they could. Penn State's really good. But the thing is here is kind of what we were bringing up earlier is playing a little defense with your offense. And I think if we got to grind them down, we got to keep their defense on the field as much of that game as possible. And hey, we didn't talk about special teams much, Ryan, but special teams can obviously make a big improvement this year. I feel like, what was it? West Virginia. We were talking about it. I think we did our previews on. I'm trying to remember who it was, but I think it was with Coos because that's who we talk mostly special teams with. It's like, I don't think West Virginia had a return last year more than 5 yards, something like that. Some ridiculous. So definitely there's room for cleanup on special teams as well. And you bring it up again, while the college game is shifting more towards kind of the professional in terms of monetization, the amateur factor is still a very real thing. Everyone remembers when they 18 to 22. Hell, we may have some on the chat right now. Remember 18 to 22. If you have 18 to 22 year olds on the chat, do you remember you'd always make your best decisions when you're 18 to 22 years old? So if everything, it applies to football as well, is sometimes you can get caught up in things. And of course, everyone understands the odds are against West Virginia, but hey, never say never, right? It's week one. It has the makings to be that game. It does. It's just about execution at this point.
And when you turn on, how many times have we seen this? Remember the graphic we talked about in the chat, the Clemson game, the Georgia game, the Oklahoma game, when they showed the flashes. Percent that think that West Virginia is going to win. It was like less than 10%. This one, I mean, you're turning on ESPN. Penn State's in the playoff in ESPN, Fox, CBS. They're, and like you said, Rush, they're 18 to 22-year-olds. Everybody in the world is telling them how good they are. They got a young quarterback. Yes, very talented. They can strike back, but they might get a little impatient if you drive the ball down like the West Virginia Mountaineers did in Norman in that primetime game a couple years ago. That 13-minute drive to start the game, and it was 7-0. Then all of a sudden, the Oklahoma team started getting a little tight. And next thing you know, you had a game coming down the wire where we almost had a chance to win in Norman when they were in the top 10. That's if you're a West Virginia Mountaineer fan, you want a formula how to beat them. It's the exact script from the Oklahoma game 2 years ago, but don't have the costly penalties at the very end and execute and kick the game-winning field goal and win 16-13, not lose 16-13. And that's the script for me, man.
What was it? I might have mixed it up. It was it was either the 81% or the famous. Why can't I remember his name right? Same thing. I'm actually trying to pull up ESPN right now.
Herb Street going. Clemson is absolutely going to annihilate West Virginia. And Gino threw for like 7 touchdowns, and we put a 70 piece on that. That really changed Clemson's trajectory. It made them
program. They fired their defensive guy. Honestly, we don't get credit. We make Clemson national champions. We destroyed them and showed them their weakness. So
who replaced that guy
for
at Clemson? Who was the defensive guy that got him going? He's at Oklahoma now.
I know it was Venables. Yeah, that's right.
Yes, it's Venables.
Yeah, it was. Of course I bring him up earlier and couldn't think of it. It was. I'm trying to think of the coordinator because I thought you were throwing me for a trick question because I know who was it? I think it's the AD at Clemson was the AD here or part of the. I know there's been a lot of West Virginia back and forth with Clemson. It's the end of the show. You can clearly tell that starting to lose it a little bit. Thank you for your support, Ronald. We really appreciate it. Yeah, ticket prices are absolutely ridiculous, especially with money being part of mostly TV streaming and commercials now. And hey, do you know what looks better on TV? A packed stadium. How do you get a packed stadium? You put prices down. It all works out for everyone. So absolutely couldn't agree more. But it's going to be a fun one, Ryan. I'm excited for this season. Our first real season covering the Mountaineers. We'll definitely be in the from the football side. But hey, we'll be out in the tailgate lots. Of course, if any of you see us around, always come up, always say hi. Reach out to us on social media. We're finishing up before kickoff on Saturday. We kind of had this unofficial promo deal going on, I guess, through this year. You see that beautiful hat that Ryan has on. We still have a couple that we can send out completely free of charge. Shipping's free. The hat's free. Just wear it whenever you're sporting West Virginia. And that's all we ask. So yeah, tweet it out. So if you email us, was it ryanandrushshow@gmail.com, or find us on Twitter or Instagram and message us, we'll try to send you one. And I guess we have to throw in that while supplies last, but we think we can cover most of you. So let us know if you'd like a free hat just in time for football season. We appreciate the support, everyone, and we're so excited for all that there is ahead for West Virginia football, and of course for this show. I'm excited because Wednesday night's the perfect night to be doing this right before no Maction yet. The games start on Thursday. You have Monday Night Football, NFL, and then Tuesday's kind of the get everything together, and then Wednesday's the perfect calm before the storm. So this is a great way to start off the games, especially week 1.
Yep, and a reminder, like I said, make sure you set your reminders, calendars. Every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock, we'll be here on West Virginia Mountaineers Live, part of the Voice of College Football. Those watching on YouTube right now sees our little banner at the bottom. Beginning tomorrow, we go live every Monday through Thursday in football season on the Ryan and Rush Show at 5 o'clock. We kind of touched on it. We understand from the fan what you guys go through. You guys work your tail off, put food on the plate for your family, and that's why we get pissed off when the team doesn't do well on Saturday. You want to win after that's your reward. You want to have a couple beers, enjoy the Mountaineers, and be a winner. So every Monday through Thursday, 5 o'clock, when you're getting off work, tune in to the Ryan and Rush Show, and we'll have you covered every step of the way for football season for the West Virginia Mountaineers, and basketball season when we get there. It'll be here before we know it, by the way. And like you said, we'll be here every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. So a lot of Mountaineer talk this fall, Rush. Can't wait, man.
Can't wait. It's awesome. It's the best time of the year. It's the most wonderful time of the year. I'll work on the singing voice. Actually, I won't. I'm just a terrible singer, but I love to do it. So I'll keep it at a minimum, I promise. But we love you all. Go Mountaineers.
Go Mountaineers. We'll see you guys next Wednesday.